would like to point out a few statements, and I brought like a few slides stating and showing to all of you what in fact is suicide. More than anything else in the world, suicide kills more people than any disease. We will see that in October 10th, 2012, as we see on World Mental Health Day, the Secretary General, Ban Ki-moon, it's going to be my son's name, my next life, calls depression, calls depression underappreciated global health crisis. And in that specific date, he stated that we have 350 million people suffering from this disease. When I say depression, it doesn't mean like, oh, we are sad today, something go wrong. It means like depression is so high, so overwhelming that the person, the individual, that we don't have like a sense of meaning of life. We lost the meaning of life. And keeping up with the statement, following the statement that he brought to us, is like there's like more than 1 million people committing suicide every year, and the majority due to unidentified or untreated depression. So this is a very powerful and strong statement, because when we get the numbers from heart disease, cancer, and wars around the world, we don't see numbers just like that. This is a silent disease that sometimes it's among us, with us, in our family members, and we don't pay attention much. And the thing is, we usually have the tendency to think, oh, this is for people that doesn't have knowledge, uneducated people. And we see this phenomena and this disease happening with people with a high educated level of people with high degrees, PhDs, with money, with power, with social projection. They're like artists, and they're like people from everywhere. So it's not circumscribed in a circle of people that doesn't have any knowledge of what life is. And I brought like a few examples here that you will see for example, in literature, and losing the meaning of life leading to suicide can be traced to different areas of society. And for example, books, writers, that's supposed to be a source of inspiration and courage to a better society, we find in some cases disillusion, added discouragement, and much sadness. And we have, for example, I brought like a few examples before we got into the topic. This is a famous writer, Goethe. I guess many of you know. He was a very famous German writer. And one of his books, The Sorrows of a Young Werther, it's an autobiographical novel that he describes the loving triangle, that actually he's telling his story. And at the end of the book, in the course of the book, this guy, Werther, killed himself because he was in love by Catherine. I forgot her name. I guess it's Catherine. Probably, yeah, long ago. And he killed himself. But the thing is, this book was so profound and so intense. He's such a good writer. Many people and many guys and men and women commit suicide because they find affinity with his story, with their story. And the amount of suicide provoked by this book was so intense that the second edition was forbidden to be published. So we see in many areas of society what happened, what it's supposed to be a source of inspiration, a source of courage, a source of like enlightening, and we see someone with problematic conflicts sometimes externalize this into their lives, into their families' lives and stuff. So there's a very famous quote about Goethe. We do not have to visit a madhouse to find disordered minds. Our planet is the mental institution of the new universe. Interesting. We have somebody else too. We have like Arthur Schopenhauer, very famous philosopher also. He was very famous and very known about his pessimism. And there's one very interesting fact that he was one day giving a lecture or like teaching in the place that he used to teach. And he said that, well, the cause of all affliction and all the problems in the world is that we exist. Something like that. And that we have to kill ourselves to get rid of all the sufferings. And one of the students says like, well, why didn't you kill yourself? And he says like, well, who's going to be here to teach you guys to do what I am teaching you? So we see things like that doesn't make much sense, but he was very famous. He was a very intelligent man too. We have like Leo Tolstoy. He's a Russian writer. In one of his books, Anna Karenina killed himself because of a love disillusion. And also it provokes a tremendous amount of suicide because people relate to that story, relating to the way that Leo Tolstoy wrote the book. But we don't see only in writers. We see this phenomena everywhere, in many parts of society. We all know about the kamikazes. Who knows the kamikazes in the Second World War? Like, because of an act of pride, I'm going to kill myself for my country. But who knows what is behind the human creature, the human spirit, behind this act of killing himself to save his country. So it's very interesting and very intriguing because the human soul is a vast scenario, so vast, so immense. And not only in patriotism, because we see today the Islamic groups, the ISIS, and many others, people like get this flag of like, I'm gonna save my religion, my people, and I'm gonna kill myself for a noble cause. So see how can people distort it? What is exactly what is a noble cause supposed to be? So we have like in religion, mass suicide sometimes occurs in religious settings, and many other cultural traditions. I put like many symbols here because this could happen in many circumstances, in many religions, in many situations in life. It's not circumscribed in one group of people. In a Spirit's book, we have in question 944, Allan Kardec asked this question: does a person have the right to take his or her own life? And the answer is no. Only God has that right. Those who intentionally commit suicide commit a transgression against this law. Spirit's book, question 944. Going forward, so Emmanuel brings us that suicide is an act of utmost rebelliousness to the will of God. And many people will say like, oh, you don't understand what you're saying because my life is miserable. How come you're saying that I am rebellious against the act, the will of God? You don't know anything about my life. The life has to be analyzed, not in one lifetime. We bring many lifetimes, in this many lifetimes that we have now at this present moment, it's the result of all these baggage that we have. And sometimes we are like people, apparently stable in a good family, with good orientation, good educational level of understanding of life, with money, a nice family, beautiful children. Everything is fantastic by the eyes of the outside. But we don't know what's happening inside of us. Sometimes we bring like guilty conflicts, and only psychology can explain and make this analysis with more profound interpretation, because apparently nothing explains the behavior of that creature, that specific person. But when we do this analysis in a transpersonal psychology, maybe going back to maybe another lifetime, it could be possible for us to bring the answer of certain behavior in this lifetime. And we're gonna go getting there like by the end of the slides. I brought here like a few slides that could lead to, could be like the primary causes. Could be, I'm not saying this is like black and white, but could be primary causes of suicide events. So we have like, for example, deceptions, frustrations. We all have deceptions, frustrations. We have like financial hardships. Who doesn't have a financial hardship here? Raise your hand. Yeah. Well, we have unemployment. We have loneliness. We all experience one of these symptoms sometimes, from time to time. Could happen to us. Addiction, alcohol, drugs, gambling with significant losses. We have stories. We see stories. We have like friends that we related to this. We can relate to this causes here. Psychotic suicide as a means of revenge to make those left behind suffer. I have a case. It's very close to me. A co-worker. This co-worker has a sister, and because they live in a different country and not in Brazil, and she was apparently the husband of my co-worker's sisters choose another woman, and he was in an act of revenge, says like, I'm gonna fast, I'm gonna stop eating because I want to create a guilty complex in my husband, and I'm going to die. And he is going to carry this conflict. And she's about to die. She's like skin and bone. She doesn't know that he is so happy that he's going to be like free of that witch. That's what he said. See, people have like different points of view. So what I'm saying, I'm not trying to create something like funny, but it's, you see how people like imagine things. I'm gonna revenge, I'm gonna create a guilty complex in that person, and I'm gonna kill myself, and I'm gonna put him into misery. All kind of stuff we can see. Sherry probably knows much more than me about like cases related to this. But I put here one of the most important cases, one of the most primary causes of this is excessive materialism. Because if I suffer here and I don't believe that life goes on, might as well put an end on my suffering. Of course. If I am suffering, I see no solution for my disillusion, my problems, my financial hardships, or whatever case may be, I might as well put an end in my life. But this is interesting. We have like suicide warning signs, something to look out for when concerned, that a person may be suicidal is a change in behavior or the presence of entirely new behaviors. This is of sharpest concern if the new or changed behavior is related to a painful event, loss or change. Most people who take their life exhibit one or more warning signs, either through what they say or what they do. Sometimes in a talk, if a person talks about being a burden to others, feeling trapped, experiencing unbearable pain, having no reasons to live, killing themselves. And we have more secondary causes too, like specific things to look out for include increased use of alcohol or drugs, we already told in the primary causes, looking for a way to kill themselves, such as searching online for materials or means, acting recklessly, withdrawing from activities, isolating from family and friends, sleeping too much or too little, visiting or calling people to say goodbye. Pay attention to this. I had a friend like, oh no, I'm about to die. It's interesting. And he committed suicide like twice. Attempt. Sorry. Giving away prized possessions, aggression behavior, and we can add more and more and more. I'm not saying these are factors that when someone presents these factors, they're going to be candidates to a suicide. Of course not. We're bringing like possibilities. These are possibilities. And mood, people who are considering suicide often display one or more of the following moods. It could be depression, could be loss of interest, rage, irritability, humiliation, anxiety, and we can go on and on. The people feels like hopeless and helpless, and people may become or actually currently suicidal if they feel hopeless or that things will never get better. This is actually sometimes the way they think. Things are not going to get better. Going to get worse and worse and worse. Unable to stand for a certain pain, sometimes a loss of a loved one, which is a tremendous amount of pain. We understand this, and we know how sometimes people have difficulties to cope and to deal with this, and we understand that it's a very weight and very heavy in our lives. Feeling lonely, afraid, and etc. So these feelings are very common, and we all feel them one point or another time, another point in our lives. It can happen, and we all experience a loss of a loved ones, a certain pain. It's natural, it's part of life. But how can we deal with that? With the knowledge of reincarnation, with the knowledge of cause and effect, and with the knowledge that everything is ruled by someone that we don't know, this infinite and supreme intelligence, the first cause of all things that we call God, and we use many names. Everything is in control. I know it's easy to say, no, everything is in control. How come you say this? I am suffering right now, and I want to get rid of the suffering because I don't have the will of getting out of my bed, standing with my own feet. And that's why together, friendship, spiritualization, learning about the spirit, learning that everything will pass one day, and this is extremely important. And sometimes medicine, it's extremely important too, because with the help of certain medications, we can go to another level of life, and maybe to start experiencing. I'm not saying that we are going to be like super spiritualized, extremely spiritualized, and everything is going to be nice and good. And sometimes we need to have help of a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a doctor. This is extremely important to do together, spiritualization and looking for help of a professional that knows and study intensely about this kind of phenomena, that it's so silent. We all suffer. We all suffer. There's no one on the face of the earth that doesn't suffer. But we have present causes and we have previous causes. When I say previous causes and I put unavoidable, it means like we have a baggage. Sometimes we are uncertain in a family context, in a country, in a society, and it looks like God is unjust. How come they put people in United States of America, such a great country, and put others in a Middle East country full of war and stuff like missiles, bombs, things going left and right with the sense of no hope? There is a why. Because someone was inserted in one country and others in another one. So previous causes are unavoidable because this baggage cannot be changed. But we can start today to build something else. Even with all the burden that we have, all the baggage that we have, we can shift a little bit and build something. Happiness, it's not something that is going to be given to you or to me like, no, you can be happy, let's love, let's believe in God. And it's an acquisition, it's a process, step by step. When we change the paradigm that, okay, I'm going to suffer for the rest of my life, yes, maybe the circumstances are very hard, but we can maybe, with the knowledge of the Spirit, with the knowledge of with religiosity, I'm not putting everything in spiritism, bringing something that we can fulfill our soul with the meaning, a sense of meaning in our life, can change dramatically our existence. There is one book written by Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl was a doctor and was put in a camp in the Second World War. And it's a wonderful book. And you see that he escaped from a gas chamber many times. And he wrote a book, Man's Search for Meaning, or something like this. I don't remember exactly. Man's Search for Meaning. And he explains that we all have to have a meaning of life. What is my objective? What is the meaning of my life? And if you read the book, you will see, and he went through everything and a little more. And how come he overcome all these problematic, and now he is like an icon bringing hope to others that sometimes has less problems than he had in that specific moment. So Man's Searching for Meaning, it's a book that I truly recommend. So previous cases, previous causes are unavoidable, but the present cause are avoidable. Many times we are the builders, the constructors, the builders of our own destiny. In many cases, if we're more humble, more compassionate, more tender, more in love, we can avoid so many things in our lives. So many things. And people sometimes keep adding and adding and adding more layers of problems in their lives. More and more layers. Instead of changing, switching their existence to something else, they keep adding and adding and adding more and more and more. So some finds its causes in the present life, others in the previous existence. Let's search for meaning of our existence and change the circumstances in our existence to at least build a little bit more, step by step, this new life that we all envision. We cannot be like happy 100%, but we can transform our life a little more, day by day, and influencing others. If we pay attention to others in the circle of influence that we have, and creating something that we can be like messengers of peace, messengers of hope, messengers, according to our capacity of transformation in our society. We have two types of suicide. We have the direct, we have the intention to commit the act, it's premeditated, or we have the indirect. There's no direct intention, it's not premeditated, it's provoked sometimes by excess of all sorts, physical or not. People that smoke too much, people that drink too much, people that are like sometimes tempered. I see people like, very temperamental, and sometimes it provokes like a heart attack without having a need to that. So sometimes we put an end in our life because the way that we react, the way that we act. It's interesting. And we have consequences to the suicide. The consequences are lesions in the perispirit, that we know that the spirit is, I'm running because I know I have, this it's supposed to be a lecture with more time, but since we have like less time, I'm running a little bit. So the perispirit, it's, how can I say, the spirit is the intelligence. The intelligence actually is an attribute of the spirit. The spirit forms a perispirit. The perispirit forms the body. So intelligence, the spirit forms the perispirit, and the perispirit forms the body. So we have lesions on the perispirit because of the guilty conscience sometimes. We have, sometimes the spirit stays in the lower zones of deep suffering. And the book Memories of a Suicide that we have here has a story that impacts us too much, tremendously. We have torments, repercussions, nightmares, accusations, visions, delirium, reliving event that led to inflicted death. This can happen sometimes with people that have a wonderful life. Family, friends, money, everything is 100% fantastic, but they experience torments, repercussion, nightmares, frequent nightmares, accusations. They hear voices, accusations, visions, delirium, reliving event that led to inflicted death. And we have also the spirit may feel the effects of decomposition due to accumulated vital energy. Perispirit still animalized and filled with abundant vital energies replicates what was happening with its former flesh. What I mean to that? Someone commits suicide. The spirit, it's still very attached to the body. The spirit still have like an amount of energy, of vital energy, so abundant that makes the spirit experience sometimes the phenomenon of the decomposition of the spirit. Of course, it's not the spirit. It's not the spirit that feels. It's the link between the spirit and the body are so intense and so strong that the sensation sometimes is experienced for years. It's so people, when I'm going to commit suicide because I want to get rid of my problems, they face something worse, sometimes 100 times worse at the other side of life. So suicide, it's not a solution in any way, shape, or form. We have guilty or of having done something terrible, expiation and reparation. These are the feelings of the spirit. And when I put there, not identical, and it varies a lot. When we read the question, Allan Kardec asked to the spirits in question 957, what are the consequences of a suicide? Question 957. And the spirits tells Allan Kardec that varies a lot. Some spirits experience their problems, the effect of the act in their next existence. Some starts experiencing the results immediately. So it varies a lot. It varies a lot. So we have future reincarnations. Their spirit will give form to the new body, often bringing an imprint of the lesions previously caused, guilty conscience of the spirit, which could appear in a new physical body. Mutilations, deafness. I put like an example: someone shot in his ear. Blindness, cancers, later developed in life, insanity, etc., etc., etc. So I'm not saying if someone has a cancer, has a mutilation, it doesn't mean that this is something related to suicide. It could be a suicide because of a guilty conscience. The intelligence, which is the spirit, forms on the act of reincarnation. This biological model, which is the perispirit, goes leading to the replication of the cells. When when one cell is formed, the sperm goes and finds the egg. When they are fertilized and forms the first egg, when the spirit is leading the replication, and sometimes by a guilty conscience, because a mind is so powerful that can lead the replication in that specific area that was the case, or was the shot, or was where we kill ourselves. It replicates in a different way, in a different form, because of a guilty conscience, and we simply creates a mutilation, a birth defect, or something that could be related to suicide. Make sense? Some factors that could instigate suicide: excessive materialism, doubts, lack of knowledge regarding life of the spirit, as a result, more weakness towards sorrows, trials, deceptions in life. Joana de Angelis, the spirit, say that the cause of all wrongdoings that still ravage our modern world find itself in the absence of knowledge of a more spiritualized lifestyle. So faith in the future we have supported by the testimonials of suicide spirits. You can read in Heaven and Hell, the second part of the book. We have several testimonials about spirits, and one of the chapters are spirits that commit suicide, and you will see their stories. It's worth reading, because we will see love disillusions, several cases in memories of a suicide, and doubts of the future life supported by opinions of those materialistics. So we have courage, we have moral weaknesses. Now, as I said, I don't intend to bring here a solution for this right away, because this is an acquisition, being happy. That's why we need to get more spiritualized, more educated about the life of a spirit, that we don't live only one life, we live several lives in order for us to grow, in order for us to be happy. One day we are going to achieve this level of awareness, and our acts in life will be very aligned with something that we say love with capital letters. But when I say love, it doesn't mean love for example, my friend John, my brother David, love in Maria Amelia, of course, yes, and Sherry, and everybody here that I love so much. But it's going to be love in a sense that we don't understand. Love by Claudinha, that is meditating there with closed eyes, you know? So it's going to be something so profound, so intense, and all our acts in life will be in alignment with this. For us to finish our reflection, I brought a reflection written by a writer. His name is Facundo Cabral. He was an Argentinian guy. There's a little music here. And of course, the reflection that he wrote is much bigger than this. But I cut like a few lines because otherwise it's going to be like immense. And we can reflect and we can relate to this. He himself passed through a very difficult. He was diagnosed with cancer, bone cancer. He was a cancer survivor. He lost his wife and daughter in a plane crash accident. Well, he went through a whole 9 yards of problematic circumstances in life, and he's still with a lot of hope and inspiring a lot of people throughout the world. And that's his story. I'm going to read with you guys. You're not depressed, just distracted. Distracted because of this life that populates in you. You have a heart, a brain, a soul, and a spirit. So how can you possibly feel unfortunate or poor? You are distracted from the true life that surrounds you. Dolphins, forests, seas, mountains, rivers. Don't fall for the same thing that your brother fell for, who suffers because of another human being, when there are more than 7 billion humans in this world. Besides, it's not so bad to live alone. I do just fine deciding what I want to do at every moment, and thanks to my solitude, I know myself, which is essential in life. You're not depressed, you are just distracted. That's why you think you have lost something, which is impossible, because everything was given to you. You didn't even create a hair on your head. Therefore, you can be the owner of anything. Also, life doesn't take things away from you. It relieves you, lightens you, so you can fly higher to achieve plenitude. God gave you the task of taking care of a human being yourself. Only you will be able to make yourself free and happy. Only then you will be able to fully share your life with others. Remember Jesus' words, "Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself." Reconcile with yourself. Sit in front of a mirror and think that the creature you see is a masterpiece of God. And choose right now to be happy, because happiness is an acquisition, not something that will arrive to you on its own. Also, happiness is not a right. It's not a right, but a duty, because if you are unhappy, you will make everyone else around you unhappy. And if you happen to have HIV or cancer, there are two things that could happen, and both of them are good. If the disease beats you, it will liberate you from the awkward body. Example, I am hungry, I am cold, I am sleepy, I feel like, I am right, I have doubts. And if you beat the illness, you will become more humble, more grateful. Therefore, you will be happy and pleased easily, relieved from any guilt, responsibility, and vanity, ready to live every moment profoundly as it should be. You're not depressed. You're just unoccupied. Go and help the child that needs you, that child who will grow up and be partners with your son. Help the elders so the young will help you when you grow old. Besides, serving others is a guarantee happiness, is when you enjoy nature and care for it, so others will do the same in the future. Give without limits, and you will receive without limits. Love others until you become loved, or even better, love until you become love itself. And don't allow yourself to be confused by the few who are homicidal or suicidal. Goodness is part of the majority, but it's not noticed because it is silent. A bomb can make more noise than a caress, but for every bomb that destroys, there are millions of caresses feeding the forces of life. Goodness feeds on itself. Evil destroys itself. Ignorance creates our limits and makes us feel mortal and confined, which means that we are not alone. We are alone, which means that we alone create our own prisons and limitations. Fear distracts us from love, which is courageous and wise because it knows it cannot be measured. You're not depressed. You are distracted from all the wonders taking place around you. You're not depressed because of something that happened to you in the past, but rather you are distracted from everything, which is the here and now. This is a beautiful statement, and people can go into internet and get in the entire message, and you will see the story of this man that met a few people in the world. He met Mother Teresa, and Mother Teresa brought him like a new perspective in life, and many others from different religions. And we will see that we all are looking for something different in our lives, and we have to pay attention. We could pay attention to the ones around us, because sometimes we cannot transform and transform the whole world, but we can pay attention to our family members with small details. We can touch their lives and maybe subtract them from this tendency of committing one day this terrible act against life. Thank you so much.